morning, dear. Today we have to start by the activity 3 about the histology of the nervous system. First, as usual, you have to prepare your notebook and a pen, your phone or laptop, and to open your biology book, page 68. The objectives to be covered. First, we have to label a neuron, to identify the 3 types of neurons, then to classify them according to their structure, then to identify the structure of a nerve, and at the end to describe the histology of the spinal cord. And let's start. What is the anatomy of the nervous system? As shown in the figure are the organs that make the nervous system, which are the brain, the spinal cord, which make the central nervous system, and the nerves that make the peripheral nervous system. So anatomy means organization, which means organs, so which are the brain, the spinal cord, and the nerves. After studying the anatomy of the nervous system in activities 1 and 2, now we have to start by the histology of the nervous system. What's the meaning of the word histology? It's the study of tissues. You know that organs are made up of tissues, so now we have to study the tissues. Tissue is a group of similar cells having a specific function. These are the cells that make the nervous system. Under a microscope, a specific cell, which is called neuron or nerve cell, appears in the nervous tissue as shown in this figure. The neuron or the nerve cell. What is a neuron or a nerve cell? This figure shows many neuron or nerve cells. It is the structural and functional unit of the nervous system, and it's an excitable cell. It's a cell that can respond when it's excited or stimulated. The neuron allows us to think, to feel, move, comprehend the world around us. The main function of these neurons is to transmit the nervous messages. The messages are given by the brain and the spinal cord, while the neuron has the function to transmit these messages. Now we have to start by the structure of a neuron or a nerve cell. It's a neuron or a nerve cell. We have to label it. Let's start. The green circle in the middle of the cell is the nucleus. This is the cytoplasm. This is the cell membrane. This part that has the nucleus inside is called cell body or soma. So the part containing the nucleus, which is this purple part, is called soma or cell body. From the cell body, we have 2 types of extensions or prolongations. These purple prolongations, which are short prolongation, and one long prolongation. The short prolongations are called dendrite, while the long prolongation is called axon. Around the axon, we have this substance called Magellan Sheath. Between a myelin and a myelin, we have something, the space between 2 Magellan sheath is called node of Ranvier. This is the synaptic bud. We have to study about this in the last activity of the nervous system. This is the axon terminal, the end of the axon. All of this, it's the nerve cell or a neuron. Now the difference between dendrite and axon. Look to this figure. The dendrite are these short prolongations. We have many dendrites in one nerve cell. So these are short cytoplasmic prolongations from the cytoplasm, and they transmit the nervous message to the cell body. Look to the nervous message which is transmitted from the dendrite to the cell body, while the axon is one long prolongation called axon. It transmits the nervous message away from the cell body. It takes the nervous message from the cell body and takes it away from the cell body. The axon is also called a nerve fiber. So you can say axon or you can say nerve fiber. Many dendrites which are short prolongation, and one axon which is one long prolongation. The Magellan sheath, if you look to this figure, we have two nerve cells. The first nerve cell, this is the axon. Around the axon we have a substance called myelin. So this axon is myelinated axon. Why this axon is non-myelinated axon? This is the myelin sheath under microscope. It's a discontinuous lipidic layer. It's a layer made up of lipids. It surrounds the axon and protects the axon. It acts as electric insulator. It can't conduct the electricity, so it increases the speed of propagation of the nervous message, because when the nervous message wants to be transmitted, it can jump from one node of Ranvier to another node of Ranvier without touching the myelin sheath, because they are electric insulator. So the message in myelinated axon is faster than that in a non-myelinated axon. The propagation of nervous message, if we look to this figure, the nervous message is from the dendrites to the cell body to the axon. If we inverse the figure, it's the same. The nervous message propagates from the dendrites to the cell body to the axon. Always one direction, dendrites to the cell body to the axon. Now we have to classify the neurons according to their structure. Observe well the following figure. It's the cell body because it contains the nucleus. From the cell body, how many cytoplasmic prolongation do we have? This is the circle, the cell body. We have only one cytoplasmic prolongation, one structure extending from the soma or the cell body. So this neuron is called unipolar neuron. While when we look to this cell body, we have two cytoplasmic prolongation. This is the first one and this is the second one. So two structures extending from the soma, it is called a bipolar neuron. The third type, from the soma we have many dendrites, many cytoplasmic prolongation, so it is called multipolar neuron. So to know the class or the structure of neuron, we have to count the number of structure extending from the soma. If we have one structure, it is called unipolar. If we have two structures, it's called bipolar. But if we have three or more structures, it's called multipolar neuron. So now we classify the neurons according to their structure. As an evaluation, you have to pause the video, prepare your notebook and your pen, and start to answering these three questions. Now let's correct the answers. The type of this neuron, we have to count how many cytoplasmic prolongation do we have. We have many dendrites, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have many dendrites and one axon as usual. So it's a multipolar neuron. To label it, A is dendrite, B is the cell membrane, C is the nucleus, D synaptic bud, and E is the myelin sheath, and the direction of nervous message from the dendrite to the cell body to the axon. The structure of a nerve. Look to this figure. This is a nerve. Around this axon, we have myelin sheath. So it's a myelinated axon. It's a non-myelinated axon. It's a nerve. So the nerve is the group of axons or group of nerve fibers as a definition. So a nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers or bundle of axons. The nerve fibers can be myelinated like the first one or not myelinated like the second one. The nerve fibers are joined by a connective tissue and traversed by blood capillaries. So as a conclusion, the nerve is a group of nerve fibers. The last objective is about the spinal cord. We know that we have brain, we have spinal cord at the level of the back inside the vertebral column. So the spinal cord is an organ of the central nervous system made up of nervous tissue. It is long and having tubular structure like tubes. The spine or the backbone is made up of a column of 33 vertebrates. We have 33 bones as adults, going from the skull to the pelvis. So from the skull to the pelvis, we have 33 bones or vertebrates. These bones enclose and protect our spinal cord. So the spinal cord is here inside the vertebral column. If we make a cross section of the spinal cord, we cut it like this, we see that the spinal cord has this shape. This is the spinal cord after making a cross section of it. To label a spinal cord, to know the structure, the part of the spinal cord. This is the dorsal side, the side of the back, and this is the ventral side, which means the frontal side. We have two types of matter. The matter, which is here, is called white matter, and the matter which is inside in the center is called gray matter. So the white matter outside and the gray matter inside. It's to memorize. The spinal nerve, which is a nerve that arises directly from the spinal cord. This is the first spinal nerve, and this is the second spinal nerve. This root is called the dorsal root, the first root of the spinal nerve. This root is called ventral root, the second root of the spinal nerve. Between the dorsal and the ventral root, we have a neuron called interneuron inside the gray matter of the spinal cord. But how can we distinguish between the dorsal and the ventral side of the spinal cord? If I give you this figure, how can you distinguish between the dorsal and the ventral side? From the shape of the groove. Here, the groove is deep and narrow, while there, it's wide and shallow. When it's deep and narrow, it's the dorsal side, which means the side of the back. When it's wide and shallow, it's the ventral side, the side or the frontal one. The gray matter and the white matter of the spinal cord. Let's start by the white matter, which is outside. The white matter under microscope is made up of myelinated nerve fibers. The myelin found inside the white matter gives it this white color, since myelin is a lipidic substance, so it has a white color. While the gray matter, which is in the center of the spinal cord, under microscope, it contains non-myelinated cell bodies. So the myelin is here in the white matter, and the non-myelinated cell bodies is inside in the gray matter. Pause the video and start to label the following cross-section of the spinal cord. The dorsal side, the ventral side, the white matter, the gray matter inside, the spinal nerve having two roots. This one is called dorsal or posterior root, and this one is called ventral or anterior root. For the next time, you have only to study the summary sheet, and thank you.